Marcus got home on a Tuesday and there was a stack of papers on the kitchen counter. And his wife wasn't home, the kids weren't home. And he stood there looking at the papers, didn't pick them up, and then finally picked them up and saw petition for dissolution of marriage. His wife has filed for divorce. He had no idea. I mean, no idea what to do. Literally, no idea who to call, no idea what to say. I mean, really just shocked. Doesn't know whether he should wait there, whether he should leave the house. Does he call a lawyer? I mean, and so what does he do? He literally just sits down on the floor and he just is kind of dumbfounded. I mean, truly cannot believe this is happening. And if you're in that moment right now, and your wife has filed for divorce and you are really pretty stunned, this video is for you. The first thing I want to say to you is this. When you say you had no idea, you're probably telling the truth. This might be actually shocking to you. A lot of men in your position spend the first week convinced that they must have missed something so obvious, that they were just oblivious, selfish, checked out, and they should have noticed it all. And that brings on all kinds of shame, which doesn't help. That actually makes things worse. But here is what I have seen in the cases that I have worked on. And I've seen this a lot. The men who are the most blindsided by this are often genuinely decent husbands by external measures. They work hard. They support their families. They're not having affairs. They show up for things, for family things. They show up, on the weekends. They might even, coach a kid's soccer team. And so they're not this like obvious villain. And they really cannot understand how in the world this happened. And the reason you didn't see this coming usually is because you missed the very, very early signals and clues. And what you didn't see lately is just the complete distance, in that you might have felt it a little, but you didn't understand it for what it was. Because likely your wife has been processing this for a very long time. And the distance you have felt, or those conversations that are just a little off, she was somewhere else entirely, because she has been working through this in her head for months, if not even a year or so. And so understanding this is really important, because it doesn't make everything okay, obviously, but it helps tell you something about what actually happened. And it's going to help you navigate things from here. So before we go to the next part of this, it is so important for you to think about what you need to do in the next 48 hours. And the answer I'm going to give you don't want to hear, because the answer is very little. That is what you should be doing in the next 48 hours, is very little. And I know you're thinking to yourself, seriously, Elise, that's the great advice you have, is very little. When you're asking like, oh, I better call her. I need to like get her to come home so we could, talk about this. I'm going to explain. I'm going to help her understand that, I'm going to fix this. Like, I get it now. I'll be able to make it better. Don't do any of that. I mean, just don't. Because I'm not saying that you shouldn't care, because you should care. But almost all those ideas you might have are actually going to make it worse. So don't do it. Don't beg. Don't argue. Don't go show up at her parents' house. Don't text her parents thinking, you're going to get her dad to talk to her or something. She has been thinking about this for a very long time. And she is not going to be talked out of this by some just like random, text exchange or some like parking lot conversation because you show up at the kids, ballet lesson and you talk to her. It's not going to work. Also, do not contact her attorney. So the name on the bottom of that, document, don't think you're going to call the attorney and you're going to be able to just explain yourself and that they're some neutral party. They're not. I mean, her attorney works for her, and you really need to make sure you understand that. And so the other thing though, sometimes people think to themselves, well, I'm going to just move out of the house. I'm going to give her some space. Like, that's what I should do. I should just move out. Even if she asks you to move out, leaving the family home and the family can have legal consequences you don't want to create without understanding them first. So do not just move out. do not move money, do not close joint accounts, do not transfer assets. All that type of reactive financial behavior can look really bad, and it can really complicate your case as we're moving forward. This is a legal process. It's not going to take hours, it's not going to take days, it's going to take months. The decisions that matter in those first 48 hours are often these decisions that are going to set the tone for the entire process. So, what you will do in the next 48 hours is you're going to call an attorney. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But you must call an attorney, because I can assure you, your wife did not file this divorce on an impulse. She did not have some emotional reaction to you, 2 nights ago saying something about her dinner she made and you saying, like, yeah, I didn't really like that. That's not why she filed this divorce. It was a deliberate logistical process. She's had paperwork. She's been filling out things. She's been talking with her attorney. This didn't happen after a bad fight. This happens after a decision she made likely months ago, possibly even more than a year ago. She has likely consulted with an attorney for weeks or months before. She has asked questions. She understands her rights. She literally is very informed. She's probably been tracking her finances for months as well. Not that she's trying to, have a big war about money, but she wants to understand, where is all the money? What is the money? Like, maybe if she wasn't the one taking care of the finances, she might not have had that information, but she likely has it now. She chose the timing. The fact that you're getting these documents, on Tuesday while the kids are at their extracurriculars was likely a planned thing. It likely wasn't random. And I'm not saying this to cast her as some calculated adversary, but because you actually need a very accurate representation of your position. And she has likely had months to prepare, and you now have maybe had hours since you got up off the floor in the kitchen. And the only way to close that gap is to now move quickly and to get informed. I mean, first, Washington is a no-fault state. So that means that nobody has to prove wrongdoing to get divorced. In Washington, that petition that you found on the kitchen counter, it just needs to allege that the marriage is irretrievably broken, meaning that the marriage isn't working for at least one person, and that person wants out. No one has to do anything wrong for a divorce to proceed. Washington is also a community property state. And so the court's job is to divide all the assets, the property, the debts in a way that's just and equitable under the circumstances. Oftentimes that can be 50-50, but other times it cannot be 50-50. And so that is just something that your attorney will help you navigate and understand what might be the most likely result in your particular case with your facts. And this is not designed to punish you. It's actually a very straightforward legal system. I mean, the law is really more neutral than most people think in Washington for divorce. And I mean, what really makes divorce expensive and painful isn't usually the law part of it. It's the conflict between the two parties going through it. So the more you can approach this as a process to navigate in a fair way rather than a fight to win, the better outcome for both of you and for your children. I mean, because if you have children, trying to do everything in your power to keep your children out of this and realize that your children need to be front and center, not caught in the middle of a battle, that is what is going to help you. And this is where I think most people, they skip this part. And some of you will push back and you're thinking like, Elise, seriously, I am not a bad person. I worked hard. I provided. I was there. Why in the world do I have to think about this? And what is happening right now? Like, why is this my problem to understand right now? And the reason you need to understand is because the men who move through this process without destroying everything, they're the ones who really do hear this clearly and they stay with it. Because there is almost always a gap between what she was experiencing in the marriage and what you were experiencing. And that gap is usually at the center of why you didn't see this coming at all and why this is such a shock. She was likely carrying a lot of the emotional load. Sometimes we call it the mental load, the invisible labor that you didn't know about. And this is one, you can read about this in Fair Play. It's a book by Eve Rodsky. There's a documentary, card game. I highly recommend it. But it is not just household logistics. Like you might think to yourself, well, I go pick up the kids from soccer, when she asks me to, go do this, I do it. It is the emotional and mental work of monitoring not only all those logistics and keeping ahead of them, it's actually of maintaining the relationship too. If you don't know when she kind of checked out of this, in all likelihood, she has been maintaining that. And so you might have noticed that something was a little off, but you didn't really put it together. And she might have been trying to talk to you about it. Maybe she sent you some emails about it. She's tried to sit down and have conversations. And eventually she just stops and she stops caring. And so that is why there's been this gap. She has a version of this conversation that has been playing in her head hundreds, if not, thousands of times before she ever sat down with an attorney. But you never heard those conversations. They were just going on in her head and you weren't there for them. And because you were not carrying that weight, you had no idea how heavy it got. And this is the most honest explanation of why you had no idea. Not that you're a bad person, but that you two were experiencing this marriage very differently. And she has likely felt that this marriage has been in crisis for a long time, whereas you might not have seen it that way. And so I'm not telling you this to be guilty, and I'm not telling you this to be responsible for something that you likely cannot go back and fix. I'm saying it because the men who move through this process the best are the ones who can hear this clearly without getting defensive, and they will bring some humility to what comes next. Because that posture in you of being humble, not being defensive, and thinking to yourself, okay, this is a process I'm going to need to navigate. If you can bring that posture to all future conversations, it is going to help you. So right now is the time to get an attorney before you agree to anything. And it is perfectly fine for you to tell your spouse, like, I got the papers. I understand that's what you want. I'm going to seek counsel so I can understand how best to handle this. End of conversation. And this is not about fighting. It's not about making it harder, but you need someone who's going to read what she filed, who's going to explain exactly what it means, who's going to tell you what your rights are and help you understand what a fair outcome looks like in this before you agree to something accidentally that's not even fair at all, because you might not know what in the world would make sense. Men who finish this process in a way that they can live with and that they're like, okay, I'm okay financially, I'm going to have a good relationship with my children. They did not start this process swinging. They are the ones who came in asking questions, who said, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me understand this. Tell me what fair looks like. Those are the men who come out on the other side intact. And it's not a negotiation right now to win back the marriage. I know your gut wants it to be, but the marriage and the divorce process are two very separate things. This is a legal process and it needs legal guidance. You can get through this. A lot of people get through this, and many of them come out the other side in a better place than they even expected. But it really starts right now. So right now, you need to think about what support are you getting around you? An attorney, possibly a therapist. These are things you're going to want to talk to your attorney about. What is your support network like? And if this hits home, I want you to watch the next video, why your husband has no idea your marriage is over. I know it sounds like it's a video for a different situation. It isn't. It's the other half of exactly what you just went through, told from a perspective that'll give you a frame for understanding how you got there that most men never get access to. And if you're dealing with this right now, let's say tonight you were the one sitting on your kitchen floor reading that petition for dissolution and you need to talk to somebody, our contact information is in the description. Call, schedule a consult so that we can walk you through what those next steps look like. Remember, don't do all those things we talked about in the beginning in the first 48 hours. Leave it.